Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of Rock Sports Showdown. I'm your host Ryan Noblet, and alongside me are our extraordinary analysts Cameron Collins, Kenny Moore, and Big Dave Miller. After tonight we'll be off for 2 weeks, so let's make it a good one tonight, guys. With a 34-27 loss to the Minnesota Vikings in London, the Pittsburgh Steelers have now fallen to 0-4 for the first time since 1968. Dave, what are your thoughts on the Steelers season thus far?
It's basically been a train wreck. It's been a plane wreck, and it's been an automobile wreck. Planes, trains, and automobiles, and they all wreck. The Steelers season as a whole, over the offseason, they never signed anyone to make them better. They got rid of Mike Wallace. They never signed anyone on defense to improve on the defense. Troy Polamalu is still falling apart from injury, even though he's still healthy this year. Ryan Clark, and everyone on the defense is healthy except for Larry Foote. They have two rookie linebackers starting with it was Vince Wilson and Jarvis Jones. But overall, the season as a whole, when you don't sign anybody after being mediocre the year before, you're probably going to be even worse the next year and be less than mediocre. So overall, the Steelers season as a whole, they're trying to work with what they got. And so far, that's not working, as you can tell. They're not getting blown out in games by any means. They lost 16-9 their first game and 20-10. Their biggest margin of defeat was 10 points. The Bears with 17, but then last week, 7 points. So in 2 games within single digits, they're losing every game, but they're not getting blown out in every single game. They're keeping themselves in it. They still have a chance to get some wins, but right now it's been an uphill climb for now.
Well, as a Cleveland Browns fan, I've obviously been loving the start to this season. A little bit of role reversal than we've seen in the past, where we've seen the Pittsburgh Steelers always atop the division and the Browns at the bottom. But anyways, the Steelers, I don't think. I mean, you heard Roethlisberger state like he feels that they're the worst team in the league. I don't really feel like that. I just feel like they're not playing well. I mean, like you said, they got rid of Mike Wallace. They got rid of James Harrison. They got rid of Rashard Mendenhall. But, I mean, Wallace dropped a lot of passes last year. Harrison hasn't been the linebacker he's been in the past. And Mendenhall really wasn't that productive. So, I mean, they really didn't lose that much. They drafted Le'Veon Bell, who's been hurt. They got Jarvis Jones. I mean, they still have the same main core of players, with the exception of Hines Ward a couple years ago retiring. That's a big player, and Heath Miller's been injured too, and so Heath Miller's back. So I mean, I think once they get when everyone's back, they're gonna win a few games. I mean, I still see them being able to reach 6 or 7 wins. I don't think this season's just thrown out the window like all these Steelers. Steelers fans have never experienced a start like this, so it's just crushing to them. But the injury to Pouncey was obviously a really big hit. Your centers, your captain of your offensive line, that's a big thing. But I don't think they're as bad off as everyone thinks they
are. Like you guys touched on, not bringing anyone in this past year, over the summer or in the off season. It definitely hurt the team. First and foremost, I want to talk about consistency. It goes back to what I said weeks past. Consistency. The team is not consistent. They start the game off poorly every week. It just doesn't work. And I don't even know where to start when it comes to like the problem. I want to say it's the defense, but then the offense starts slow in the first half. So you can't really pinpoint where to go. But if I had to say the problem, I would say it's definitely the defense. You guys say losing all these players, James Harrison and Mike Wallace. You're saying losing those guys doesn't really mean anything, and Mendenhall, but it kind of does in a way, because experience is the best teacher. Experience is better than starting rookies like LaDavion Bell, or that guy, the running back. Experience is definitely something that the team needs they need. The most experienced player they have, I believe, is Polamalu on defense, and then the quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger. So I mean, they're a young team. And start off 0-4. To me, it's a surprise because it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. But if you look at any other team that has those kind of players and they start that poorly, it's understandable.
Mike Wallace wasn't worth a 5-year, $65 million that the Dolphins paid him. The James Harrison, is not the same linebacker. Rashard Mendenhall was falling off hill. And starting off the season 0-4, first time in 45 years for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think it's just going to be a fluke of a season. With a number one receiver like Antonio Brown and a number two receiver like Emmanuel Sanders, then your slot receiver number 3 being Marcus Wheaton, those aren't the best receivers to let Ben shine. Even though Ben, still think is a great quarterback, you still need good wide receivers to make you shine. So I just don't think it's a fluke of a season, but it's a season to forget right now.
Yeah, and Kenny, you say they're a young team. They're actually not. They actually have about the oldest. They have the oldest average age of their starting defense, Dave, at about 29 point something years old. They have the oldest defense in the league.
I was referring more to the offense on that.
That's
one,
okay. That's more where I'm coming from. They have the experience, but they're getting old. They have these same players, that they've had in years past that they've been successful with, but they're seasoned, to put it nicely. They're on their way out. Polamalu's still an effective defender, but he's not the defender he was 5 years ago. Same thing with Larry Foote, any of those Timmons, any of those defenders. Their secondary is pretty young, but with Gay and what's his name? Taylor. They're pretty young, but as a whole, they're an old defense on their way out, and that's their offense. Their offense hasn't been terrible. We've seen them put up points in some games, and like you said, it's kind of one thing or the other. If their offense shows up, their defense doesn't. If their defense shows up, their offense doesn't. So they just have to get everything together in one game.
Yeah, I think they just need to be more consistent. Right now, they need to change the way they are and then be more consistent because they need to start winning games. Mike Tomlin, I feel for him, as a coach because he's won 2 Super Bowls since he's been there. So it's kind of it's not looking too good for him. But I'm sure they're going to keep him as a coach. You shouldn't have any worries in Pittsburgh for you fans out there. But personally, like I said, their offense needs to, like you said, pick it up, and their defense needs to, get better just completely. I think they should have drafted someone, a nice safety or something. They should have got the Honey Badger, or something, It's just something, but they need to pick it up a lot.
All right, and a note about Roethlisberger saying the Steelers are the worst team in the league. I don't think they're the Jaguars or the Jets necessarily, but
The Jets have 2 wins.
The Jets have 2 wins?
The Giants are 0-4.
Giants are 0-4. That's who I meant. I apologize for that. Giants are surprisingly bad, but there it is actually. With Week 4 of the NFL in the books, the Giants, Buccaneers, Steelers, and Jaguars are the only teams left without a win. Kenny, which of these teams do you think will be the first one to get win number 1?
Between the Giants, the Jaguars,
the Buccaneers and the Steelers.
The Buccaneers and the Steelers. Honestly, if we're going off of, past, I'm going to have to say the Giants because the Giants I think they're the most surprising out of all the teams. The Steelers, you got to put them in the same category, but personally, I'm going to say the Giants will probably get their first win. Or the quickest. They'll get their first win the quickest, but they play the Eagles next, so I don't think they're going to get that win then, but after that game maybe, but there's going to be a few 0-5 teams unless they play each other next week.
Yeah, I definitely don't see it's definitely not going to be the Jaguars. We've seen in 2 of their 4 games they've scored a total of 5 points. They scored 3 points yesterday. They scored 2 points in Week 1. I think the most we've seen them put up in a game was 20, and that was
17 against Seattle.
So definitely not going to be the Jaguars. Don't think it's going to be the Buccaneers. With that quarterback carousel now, the curse over in Tampa Bay instead of New York. Issues with Josh Freeman and just Shiano's. That team's just not playing well so far this year. And with the Steelers, do they still have 0 takeaways?
Yeah.
0 takeaways in 5 games. So or 4 games, I'm sorry. Going into their 5th game, 0 takeaways. But I don't think that's happened in 30 years at least. So kind of like Kenny said, I definitely think it's going to be the Giants. We've seen them have these big turnarounds in past. I mean, when they've gone on to win the Super Bowl, going on to beat the undefeated Patriots in the Super Bowl, underdogs, they're used to being to be counted out. And Tom Coughlin's done this before. How many times has Coughlin been on his way out the door and then turns it around? So I definitely think it'll be the Giants who come out and get win number 1 first.
Yeah, I think the Giants can even do it next week. It was the Eagles. It was the stellar offensive performance by the Broncos. They still let up 52 points and 31 in the second half. The Eagles' defense is shaky. The offense still gets around the 20-point range, but if you're going to allow that many points to happen, you're not going to get a win ever. I think the Giants, even though they scored 7 points in their last 2 games, can get a win next week if they just limit the turnovers, and I think they can do that next week. The Steelers, they have the bye week coming up, so they still have another week to digress in their loss to the Vikings. And then next after that, they're on the road. So I can see them. They only have 1 home game. That's going to be on October 10th, I think, in the next 5 weeks. They're on the road twice, then they have 1 home game, then I think on the road twice again. So they have a tough schedule, even though they do have the Bills and the Jets and back-to-back weeks there, and the Lions as well. So and the Lions are a surprise team. But I think of all the teams, the Buccaneers and the Jaguars, it might be a while till they get their first win.
Yeah, definitely. Move on to the next topic.
All right. As a note on that, I think the Jaguars actually probably the worst team in the league. Like I kind of hinted out in this category.
Definitely.
The Giants don't look much better. It's actually really surprising.
Yeah.
Because it is to me anyway. Because I always thought Eli, as much as me makes fun of Eli Manning, he is a pretty good quarterback. He does have 2 rings. So.
Mm-hmm.
Tonight, the Dolphins and Saints go head-to-head on Monday Night Football. Both teams enter the game 3-0, and only one will leave unbeaten. Cameron, who do you think comes out on top in this one?
I definitely think this is going to be a very tight game. We've seen a surprise Dolphins team so far this year. Ryan Tannehill's playing like a seasoned quarterback right now. Kind of he's that other type of second-year player where, we see these rookies come out and have these amazing, phenomenal seasons like Cam Newton had in his rookie year, and then come out there next year and just hit this slump. He's kind of that other rookie quarterback where they come out and just kind of take their time and learn, and then kind of kick it into gear the next year. So Tannehill's he's finally coming into his own. He's got that new target in Wallace. The Dolphins' defense is pretty good, but they're going up against Drew Brees-led Saints offense, which can always put up big points. So I think it's going to be a close game, but I do think the Dolphins are going to take this one and stay unbeaten. I think it's probably going to be, say, 34-27.
The New Orleans Saints, they're home. I believe Drew Brees has won his last 9 or 8 Monday Night Football games. He's also looking to, he's also looking to take his team to 4-0. I think that the Saints will win this game. Score-wise, maybe I'm thinking it's going to be a high-scoring game, and the Dolphins are going to are going to struggle to score as many points as the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints are just, especially with Drew Brees leading them, they're absolutely just a high-powered offense, and it may not be like the Broncos or but it is definitely a high-scoring offense. So I look forward to the New Orleans Saints beating the Miami Dolphins tonight. I'd say the score maybe about 35 to maybe 24.
You just look at the Dolphins overall. They've always had a somewhat pretty good defense. They're always fast in being able to tackle in the open field. And I think they can limit the wide receivers with like Lance Moore and all of them down the field with Drew Brees. And I do think the Dolphins can come away with this because Ryan Tannehill with Brian Hartline as the number 1 was like an Antonio Brown this year for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now having Mike Wallace there as a deep threat and number 1 and Brian Hartline to be in there for the slot and the post routes up the middle, it opens up so much for them to run. And if they can establish a running game early, I think they can beat the Saints team pretty easily with a 35-20 score. So I think the Dolphins are going to be 4-0 after this week, and they're going to be tied with the New England Patriots, and that's going to be a fun divisional race to watch this year.
Absolutely.
All right, and I think Tannehill's come onto his own, and
absolutely.
I mean, if you look at the three big rookie quarterbacks from last year, Wilson, Luck, and RG3, I think Tannehill's actually hasn't quite surpassed them yet, but he's certainly on their level now. It's actually really interesting to see that second-year development.
Hey, he's got his team with the best record of those quarterbacks right now. So,
yeah. All right, great discussion, guys. We'll have your point standings for you when we come back from this quick commercial break. Welcome back to the second half of Rock Sports Showdown. Our current point standings are as follows. In third place, we have Kenny with 12 points. In second place, we have Dave with 13 points. And in first place, we have Cameron with 14 points. So it's still anyone's game. It's a very close race. The NBA has decided to realign the NBA Finals format to a 2-2-1-1-1 format as opposed to the 3-3-1-1 2-3-2. 2-3-2 format they had before, yes. How do you think this format will affect future NBA Finals, Kenny?
I mean, I don't think it'll be much of a difference. It's basically like a normal, series until the NBA Finals in recent years. But, I feel like, in recent years, the Dallas Mavericks against the Miami Heat in 2000. I want to say 11 when they played against the Heat, when LeBron James' first year on the Heat, when they played them, the Dallas Mavericks used that to their advantage, having those 3 home games. So I think for certain teams that aren't good away, it could hurt them, but it's a normal series in the grand scheme of things.
I think it makes the finals like it is in the rest of the playoffs. In the 3 series before that, it's a 2-2-1-1-1 format. Then when they get to the finals, it's a 2-3-2 format usually. Now to change it, it'll just make the flow of things better. It's going to be how it was before. I think it'll improve in the finals as well. You look at the Heat, and like last year, they split all those games until the final 2 games, where the Spurs won games 1, 3, and 5. The Heat won 2, 4, 6, and then it was down to 7. You thought the Spurs might have taken it, but it was in Miami. In those final 2 home games, they got to win both of those home games. So if you had the 2-2-1-1-1 format, it could have been a different champion last year. So I think it's going to maybe help out teams with home field advantage.
Yeah, that's kind of was going to be my point. Is I think especially for teams, it's not always that way with everyone, but I think home court is big for a lot of teams. And what I think it'll do is I think it helps create a lot more 7-game series. I think we'll see a lot more series go to 6 or 7 games because you've got because like where with the 2-3-2 format, if the team that's got the 3 home games, if they take one of those first 2 games and they play really well at home, they've got a good chance of winning it in 5. Where with the 2-2-1-1-1, they might just keep trading games back and forth when you get that 1-1-1, and I think it'll create a lot more series that go 7 games, which for the fan is great. It's a much more exciting series. Like, who wants to watch a sweep? That's kind of boring. I mean, if it's your team, that's awesome. Yeah. Because you don't have to sweat it out. You don't have to worry. But I mean, watching a 7-game series is always more exciting, and I think it'll create a lot more of those.
I mean, honestly, it may not even be that much of a difference, honestly, because there's been times where, the Miami Heat, for instance, have just run the table, or the San Antonio Spurs completely just ran the table in the Memphis Grizzlies last year, so it doesn't even matter, really, in the grand scheme of things, because when you get to the NBA Finals, if you're better than that team, it's the 2 best teams, coming from the East and the West, so, it's not going to be like how it is in the Western Conference, the Eastern Conference, when you're just a superior team like the Miami Heat and last year the San Antonio Spurs were. So it kind of goes more into, I guess, like you said, who's better at home, but at the same time, it really doesn't matter because if you play a good game, any team can win on any floor.
I think I agree with Cameron. It's going to create a lot more Game 7 series.
Yeah, like you said, there are some teams that home court really isn't a big deal. It really doesn't affect them at all. They play well anywhere, and that's where it might create, it might change things up a little bit. It might not, like we saw in 2012, Miami sweep OKC in the NBA Finals.
Miami didn't sweep OKC. They won 5 games. But I mean, it's not like it's going to be much of a difference. What I'm saying, I mean, it's been so many years. They just changed that rule to 2-3-2. You know, in years past, you know, the Lakers, you know, playing against the Celtics, those games were never sweeps. You know what I mean? Those games never ended in 5 games. Those games went 6 or 7 games. So, like you said, I credit you guys. I think you guys are right about it being possibly being more of a 7-game series. You know, but I don't see it being much of a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it'll all play in you know, the quality of the 2 teams that make it to the finals. You know, like I said, like we saw, you know, Miami was just heads and toes better than OKC in 2012, 5-game series. Where last year, the Spurs were a very good team, pushed it to 7 games. So I mean, it may make a big difference. It may not. You know, we might say it's the new format that does that. It might not be. We just have to wait and see.
Remember, Ray Allen did save the Heat last year.
Yes, he did.
A game.
They had him on the ropes.
So, like if in this format, that game would have been in San Antonio.
Yes.
So. Next topic: the Pittsburgh Pirates will be taking on the Cincinnati Reds in the 1-game wild card playoff at PNC Park on Tuesday night. It will be Francisco Liriano on the mound for the Pirates and Johnny Cueto on the mound for the Reds. Dave, who do you see moving on in the playoffs from this one?
With all bias put aside, as you can tell, I still have to go with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Francisco Liriano is 11-1 at home this year when pitching, and Johnny Cueto, he is very good against the Pittsburgh Pirates, but the first game of the year at PNC Park on April 12th was the first Free Shirt Friday. They got to Cueto early. They put 4 runs in the first 3 innings, and then whenever it was all tied up 5-5 in the 7th, or Brandon Phillips tied it up 5-5 in the 7th on a 2-run shot. Then McCutchen came back with a solo shot the next inning. They got to beat Cueto, and Cueto was hurt for most of the year, but now he's coming back and he's going to start the game. It's all going to be coming down to the bats in this game, even though I think it's going to be a pitching showdown tomorrow night. With the Pirates putting up 9 home runs this last series against the Reds in Cincinnati, the ball flies there. You're not going to see as many long balls this game. You might not even see a single one. But if the Pirates can jump on Cueto early, this team, the Pirates are going to win.
Well, first of all, this is huge for the city of Pittsburgh. You know, for the Pirates to finally make the playoffs, or you know, be about to make the playoffs, kind of for the first time. You know, so sorry, it is the wild card. I'm sorry. So they did make the playoffs, but you know, to get further in there, you know, they have to beat the Cincinnati Reds. And they are coming off, you know, sweeping the Reds. So it is possible, you know, they can win. But, you know, if I relate this to other sports, you know, if I could, the Eagles beat the Cowboys 3 straight times in a regular season and lost to them in the playoffs. You know, so I can't sit here and say that it's a sure thing that the Pittsburgh Pirates will win. But I have to go with the Pirates. I have to go with them because, like Dave said, you know, Liriano is 11-1 at home. And I feel like the Pittsburgh players play really well at home because of the fans and, you know, just the atmosphere. You know, it's nothing like it.
Yeah, Pittsburgh has a really great home record this year. Like Dave said, Francisco Liriano thrives at PNC Park. And I really do think coming off of this sweep of the Reds to finish the season is going to be a big momentum booster because, you know, You've just taken 3 games from the team you're about to play again. And if you're a team, you've just played the team you're about to play in the playoffs, and you've lost to them 3 games in a row, your confidence isn't really there. You know, you're not going to be too sure of the outcome of this game. Where, you know, the Pirates, they're going to be real confident. You know, they're playing at home. They're coming off of a 3-game sweep of Cincinnati. Like they said, 9 home runs in that series, 6 in one game on Saturday, 6 home runs. So, you know, we've seen the Pirates can have these big power bursts. So, and I do think that's what it's going to take, not necessarily maybe 6 home runs in one game, but it's going to take some power contribution for the Pirates to make a run through this playoffs. Alvarez is definitely going to have to contribute with some power, driving in runs. They need to strike early, strike often, but I do see the Pirates prevailing in this game on Tuesday night.
All right, and as you said, the Pirates did sweep the Reds. The last game, I believe, was with backups. Mm-hmm. However, which it still counts as a sweep, but either way. And you got to realize the crowd at PNC Park is going to be a little riled up tomorrow. First playoff appearance in 20 years, 21 years.
Yeah.
So the AL Wild Card playoff game will be on Wednesday night, and the Cleveland Indians will be hosting the winner of the Rays-Rangers game tonight. Cameron, who do you think will win the AL wildcard game?
Well, my bias aside, as an Indians fan, I think the Indians finishing the season on a 10-game win streak. They finished the season in September. I think they were 24-6 in September. They had the best record in baseball in the month of September. They had the easiest schedule, but they still had to capitalize on those games. Ubaldo Jimenez, he was named AL Pitcher of the Month, 1.07 ERA in the month of September. We've got great young pitching. Danny Salazar will be starting the game on Wednesday night. Throws about 97, 98 miles an hour, deep into games. And the Indians' offense has just been ridiculous. They've been going off the end of this month. And so, I mean, I think either team they play, Tampa Bay or Texas, they're both exhausting one of their pitchers tonight. Cleveland will get to play them on Wednesday at home, which is big for Cleveland, too. They have a great home record also. And I just see them coming out and jumping on them early. And Salazar has pitched great since he got called up partway through the season, and I think the Indians are going to take this one.
I mean, it depends. It doesn't even matter who the Indians play in this game. I think they're going to win. Overall, they're hitting better than both of these teams. They are pitching better than most of these teams. With Chris Perez out as the rule of closer,
Thank God.
And Justin Masterson coming into the bullpen a lot and possibly being the closer, they're doing what the Rays did in 2008 when they used David Price as the closer throughout the playoffs there and then developed him into a starter. I think that the Rays win, it's going to be an even bigger blowout win because I think the Rangers have a better offense than the Rays. So it's going to be a closer game if the Rangers go up, not because of the offense, but because I'm expecting them to pitch Yu Darvish because they're pitching Martin Perez tonight, and Yu Darvish being the best pitcher on that squad. And the Indians have, I believe, jumped on Yu Darvish once this year. So as long as they don't strike out a ton, which he usually does, the Indians are going to put it away with whoever they play, whether it be the Rays and the Rangers. And I can see them maybe even getting past the first round, getting into CS. But for now, I just think they can win their wild card game.
I agree. That they can definitely win the game. The Indians can. I'm sorry. They, like you said, they are on a 10 game winning streak. In the month of September they are playing very well. But the thing about it is playoffs are in October, and pressure comes with playoffs. So I wouldn't be so set on the Cleveland is winning the game despite their great hitting and great pitching. There's pressure bust pipes, and you have won 10 games. Yes, you are 24-6 in September, but the game's played in October, and you have to start your own record, a new record for that month.
Yeah, I mean that is one of the things is this is a relatively very young team, and I think with the exception of maybe Nick Swisher and I think Nick Swisher is about the only guy who really has playoff experience with the Yankees. Yeah, I think Bourne's been there maybe once, but yeah, like I said, I mean it's a young team who haven't experienced playing in October. So yeah, like Kenny said, I mean not like the Pirates where you've got guys like AJ Burnett who bring sort of a veteran presence to kind of control over their team. This is a really young team. They're really going to rely on Terry Francona, who has been there before. 2 World Series rings in the past decade, which I really think that's going to play a factor in these playoffs, is Terry Francona. Definitely going to win AL Manager of the Year, and I think he's going to help the Indians maybe make a run in these playoffs here.
Ubaldo Jimenez was in the playoffs once with the Rockies in the World Series, so that's why I think after he's going to be the ace of the staff going into the playoffs if they do win this first game. So it'll be interesting how dominant Ubaldo can be if he can keep it up.
Yeah, the Cleveland Indians, they're definitely, above the Rays and the Rangers. So I look forward to them winning the game. But if they don't win, it'll be because of the team being so young and their lack of experience.
Yep.
All right, well, looks like that's it. One note about that playoff game, like Dave said, yes, Ubaldo Jimenez was on the World Series Rockies team. And again, Terry Francona, probably still one of the best managers. it's actually a shame the Red Sox got rid of him when they did, because they put in Bobby Valentine and then the wheels fell off last year. That was a real treat. All right. Well, that's the game. Our final point standings are Kenny with 22 points, Big Dave with 25 points, and Cameron with 25 points.
Buddy.
What I'm going to do here is I'm going to ask each of you, who do you think is going to win, Texas or Tampa? And we'll see what I like better of the two.
Oh, jeez.
So we'll have a little showdown here today.
I believe Texas, they have a better offense, and Nelson Cruz has come back in the number 6 spot, even after the PED scandal with him. But he served his suspension, and I believe he can bring the power against David Price, who has struggled against the Rangers.
I think Tampa Bay is going to take it. I think David Price, he struggled a little bit this year, but he's had a couple great months. I think he's going to come out and throw a gem. And you've got the stud Will Myers, probably going to be the AL Rookie of the Year. I think he's going to put the team on his back, and he's going to take him over the top tonight.
All right, well, I think I'm going to go with Dave, since you threw out that fact about Nelson Cruz and the suspension. So, Dave, you get your 30 seconds of FaceTime.
Oh, man, this is my favorite time. I'm going to wait for the camera to get on me at this point. But I am going to have to give it up for the Denver Broncos and the Seattle Seahawks actually living up to expectations so far this year. We see in college football, last year with USC being number 1 and then dropping below the rankings, and now firing Coach Lane Kiffin. The Denver Broncos being the dominant team that they were last year, even being a bigger presence of dominance this year with their offensive power, scoring 179 points so far this year in their first 4 games. The Seattle Seahawks coming out with big turnovers against Matt Schaub and company and getting the pick 6 that would eventually tie up the game to go into overtime and to win the game by 3. This might be a possible Super Bowl this year in New York.
That's 48 seconds
Yeah,
out of
nice
30.
48 seconds.
That was long.
FaceTime, Dave.
Pretty long. I'm going to cut you off next time.
That's fine.
All right. Well, that's all we have for you tonight. Once again, for Cameron Collins, Kenny Moore, and Big Dave Miller, I'm your host, Ryan Noblet. Please join us in 2 weeks for another edition of Rock Sports Showdown.